Hi, my name is Sandra with the Food Bank of the Rio Grande Valley. I'm the Senior Manager for Health and Social Services, and I'm here to actually talk to you about the basics of kitchen utensils. So we're going to start briefly with what exactly we need in the kitchen, and this right here is a table full of items that we will need in the kitchen, and I will explain to you what each of them entails. So let's start with the knives. It is always a good idea to have a great set of knives. Unfortunately, we start with a really good set, and then in a couple of months or maybe a year or two, we tend to just have one or two that's going to be our favorite, and that's okay. But let's start with a good set. It does not have to be expensive. We're all on a budget, and what we really want you to do is know how to use them. So I'm going to explain what each of the knives actually is for. So we'll start with carefully taking them out, and this is a chef knife. It has 8 inches of blade. It is a great way to chop any kinds of meats or large vegetables. To go on, we also have a Japanese style knife in this set. And this Japanese style knife is actually one of the favorites for many people. This one is actually a Santoku knife, and it is used to chop. And they're very, very sharp. So we have to be very careful. Remember, food safety is one of the most important things to remember in the kitchen. And being careful with not having accidents is what we are primarily making you aware of with all of these knives as well. We also have a bread knife. A bread knife is good to have because if you love to bake, this is one of the knives that will be your best friend. And with this kind of knife, if you have a loaf of bread or if you're making banana bread, this will not make it to where it's gonna crust it. You're gonna cut through it very smoothly. And so this has a serrated edge. It's also very, very sharp, and it is used mainly for breads. Next, we have a utility knife. This utility knife is about 5 inches of blade, and it is used for the larger fruits and vegetables. It's also very sharp, and we need to be very careful with how we use it. All of these knives are mainly aimed towards adults. We don't want children to get them. We need to remember that children's safety is very important as well. And then we have a paring knife. The paring knife is going to be used more for the smaller fruits and vegetables, for example, lemons or limes, kiwis, anything that is small, we would be using this paring knife for. And of course, most of these sets come with steak knives. The steak knives are also about 7 inches long in the blade, and they're serrated at the very bottom. Their only purpose is to cut steaks. And so you can have an even cut at each of your intentions of cutting that great steak of yours. So with that said, and with explaining what each of the knives is intended for, you also need to remember that you have to have a good cutting board. All right, so cutting boards, they're also important when we're talking about knives. It's very important to have different sizes of cutting boards for different items that we're going to be cutting into. Also, another suggestion is if you have different colors, that would help with not using the same cutting board for the same items. In other words, have a cutting board for your fruits and vegetables, have a cutting board for your meats, and also have a cutting board for maybe some of the smaller items. I like having different size cutting boards because it allows me to use them in different manners. Also, another very important thing of a cutting board is to have a good grip on the side. You don't want a cutting board that is moving all over the place because that is an accident waiting to happen. For example, if you have a knife and your cutting board is moving all over the place and you have your hands, you could cut yourself. We don't want that to happen. So one of the suggestions that I do give is have a good grip, or another suggestion if you don't have a grip on your cutting board is grab a paper towel. Make sure that it's moist. Once this paper towel is moist, you can put it under your cutting board, and it'll give it a better grip to where it's not moving around. Okay, those are just small suggestions that we can give you to actually stay safe in your kitchen and eat well. So not only are you staying safe, but you're also learning the basics of some of the kitchen items that we're introducing to you. So now that we've talked about knives and cutting boards, let's talk about the kinds of pots and pans you should have in your kitchen. You don't need to have a huge set, you just need to have some essentials. So I would suggest having a large pan and a medium-sized pan. If you have lids to them, even better. If you don't, make sure that you're not using them to fry, because if you're frying, it could splatter and you could hurt yourself. Another suggestion that I have is always have a saucepan. It doesn't have to be a large saucepan, but something that is deep enough so you can either boil water, boil pasta, or have some sort of pasta sauce in there. With the saucepan, always remember to have a lid, because if you close it tightly, that's not going to spill over. So we've gone through several items already in the kitchen that are very useful. Some of these items are going to be the knives, the cutting boards, and also the pots and pans. But what about if you're a baker? We also need some of these mixing bowls. Mixing bowls can either be in the stainless steel. Different sizes are very recommended because you don't know how big the batch is going to be. So we also like the glass bowls. We have different sizes right here. You can mix in these. These are actually very good to go in the oven as well if you want to make something that's more rounded. Aside from that, we have the stainless steel ones. Like I said, having different sizes is very, very essential to have in the kitchen, because you will always have something to mix in there. It could be fruits and vegetables. It could also be baking items, baking essentials. Could be a cake mix, but you're gonna have something to mix it in. Measuring cups. Remember, we have to keep our portion control. What better to do that than with measuring cups? We have measuring cups that are very, very colorful here, and this goes from 1/4 of a cup all the way to 1 cup. Remember that if you measure your items, you're always gonna stay within the recipe, what it calls for, and you are gonna stay healthy. So we always promote staying healthy, following a recipe, and not only that, but only going with whatever it is that it requires. Don't go a little extra, because you're either adding too much of one of the ingredients that your body really doesn't need. We have measuring spoons as well. It's very important to keep a set of these. It doesn't have to be these necessarily. It can be from the dollar store. It can be from your local grocery store. As long as you have them in your kitchen, you know you have the essentials to measure any item that you are needing to, whether it be liquid or it be a dry product. I also like these right here, and I know I have too many of them, and you don't have to have this many in your kitchen, but I like to keep different sizes. This one right here is a 1 cup. We have one that's a 2 cup. My favorite is this one right here, because I don't have to get these other ones out if I'm measuring a little extra. So this one goes all the way from 1 cup to 4 cups. And I probably have it backwards, but once you see it, from 1 cup to 4 cups, you don't need these other ones. So remember, you don't have to have a lot of items in your kitchen. You just have to have the basic essentials. Whatever it is that you're gonna be using in your kitchen is all that you need. Don't buy extras, because then we start to clutter up all our cabinets and not have any space for other things that we might need. Remember that having different styles of measuring cups and measuring spoons is important, because there's going to be times that you're going to have a dry product. Dry products can go with maybe the plastic editions, which are these right here, or you can also use the glass ones. The glass ones are more aimed towards a liquid, okay? It's optional, but it's something that's more recommended. Remember, any liquid needs to come out smoother, and the glass will always help you with that. The measuring spoons, that's either for liquid or dry products. So last but not least, remember, a strainer is very important in your kitchen. When we have pasta going and we want to strain it so it can come back into the pot later, we want to make sure that it's coming from the pot onto your strainer. Remember that any kind of heat will also be harmful to you, so make sure that you are doing it in a safe way. Aside from the strainer, other things that we suggest you have in the kitchen, very basic. You don't have to have your drawers full of all these spoons and ladles and nothing like that. You just need something simple. A slotted spoon, a regular spoon that has no slots at all. This could also be used for mixing. Not only do you have to use it for sauces or anything like that, but for mixing, if you don't have one of the whisks, one of these spoons would work just as well. The whisk, of course, if we're using the mixing bowls, the whisk is the one to use if you're not using a mixer, a hand mixer. The whisk is very useful as well. Another item that's important is to have the tongs. And if you don't tap them twice before you use them, I'm sure that you're not just like me. I might not be normal. But the tongs are very important. These can be useful not only for things that you are frying, but also maybe a tortilla that you want to flip and you don't want to use your hands. We can use tongs as well. Tongs have many uses to them. We have a spatula. The spatulas are mainly used for fish, for chicken that we're just turning over. It is a very basic tool to use. And of course, a ladle. If we have soup or we have any kind of item that has sauce on it, this would be a great way to pour it onto your food item. So we have the spatula, the ladle. Again, we have the whisk. We have a regular spoon and a slotted spoon. And of course, we can't forget the tongs. Keep them all together and you will see that it is less mess in your cabinets, and all you really need is a small little container to keep them on your counter. So thank you so much for joining us today. Today we talked about basic kitchen essentials. As you see on this table, this is really all we need to get going in the kitchen. So let's get cooking and let's be healthy.